Hey, what's going on, guys? Been a couple weeks off. Hayden and I let that hot stove boil up, and we're back for episode 5, season 2 of the Longball podcast. My thoughts are in a million different places right now, so if Hayden has to keep me in line in this episode, that's what we're going to do. But how you guys doing this afternoon in the chat? And Hayden, what's going on, my dude?
Yeah, what's going on? It's good to be back as always. Took 2 weeks off, settling into school and all that stuff. Uh, Everything's been going pretty well for me. Obviously, baseball is just around the corner. Obviously, we have 23, 24 days, 23 days till pitchers and catchers report, and just little less than just about a month till spring training starts on February 25th for a couple MLB teams. So looking really, it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it, and yeah, I'm super excited. It's going to be a really fun season. And yeah, we got a off season is kind of wrapping up. Obviously, a lot of the free agents are cut done and over with. Um, it's been like that for most of the time now, but now we're kind of dealing with your cheaper free agent signings, as you could say. We'll put that in a nicer term. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well. No major complaints.
See, for me, right, my mind's in a whirlwind right now because I talked about this with you off the air before we went live, and that's why I got the aviators on. That's why I'm all over the place. As someone who wants to do play-by-play in this industry, right? I want to do play-by-play for whatever sports talk radio. I want to be in the sports talk industry. Me, a diehard Atlanta Braves fan, just had our play-by-play voice since 2005 step down and take a job with the St. Louis Cardinals, Chip Carey. So my mind was already in a million places when you called me to do the show, an hour earlier than planned. But now throw on top that my favorite team's announcer and my dream gig is all of a sudden up for grabs. I don't want to miss any information. My mind's in a million places. So
No,
yet
of
again, do
course.
we miss our live stream that we're gonna do last week? So like 6 or 7 other signings have happened since then, and we're trying to beat the clock so we're not still streaming when your roommate walks back in. But yeah, if you
Yeah.
wanna get into it, where should we let off? What's good, Gio? Your boy saying hello.
What is going on, everyone?
Mitch always saying hello. What's up to the Hardcore Sports Network father? Junior Linkster says hello as well. And Alyssa Bush says, hey, Hayden. I don't know what Let's Go Amazing Mets is, but if you want to inform me on that. All right, so let's hop into our brand here real quick. All right, so the first big topic that has definitely got to be covered, a trade went down last Friday afternoon, and not just any trade, a pretty significant one for two teams that are trying to go two different directions. I think this helped them in both cases. Um, the Minnesota Twins and the Miami Marlins exchanged AL average leader Luis Arias for their number 2 starter in Miami, Pablo Lopez. Other players were included in the deal. Maybe we can look up the you know, specifics here in a minute or two on who all was exchanged. But I really, really like this move for both teams. What about you?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty interesting move for, I guess, both the Minnesota Twins and the Miami Marlins. Obviously, taking a look for the Miami Marlins, I think this is probably a benefit for the Miami Marlins opposed to the Minnesota Twins. Obviously, the Marlins are getting a position player, a guy that's going to be out there every single day, a guy that is coming off of a phenomenal elite season in 2023. Arias, he gave you high on base percentage, high average, just elite at the plate. And now you sprinkle that in defensively, great defensive player. All around, he's a really good ball player. And obviously now comes into question, you put him at second base. That's going to be the thing. And then obviously, you're going to do a little bit of work around the field. Obviously, Chaz Chisholm Jr., or just Chaz Chisholm, I guess you could say, was the second baseman for the Marlins. And now he is going to play center field. And you have Luis Arias in second base. So it's a nice little thing there. Good to hear that, Chisholm was kind of cool with going to center field from what it sounds like. Um, so yeah, I think that was a pretty good move for the Marlins. I mean, you look at that Marlins offseason, they've had for their expectations, bringing in Segura, Arias, your infield isn't looking too shabby, I guess you could say. So that's for the Marlins case. The Twins obviously getting Pablo Lopez. brings in another arm for that Minnesota Twins team. Taking a little look-see at the Minnesota Twins rotation right now, they're definitely, in need of some depth. Obviously, I mean, you have guys like Sonny Gray. You have the guy coming off of his rookie season and Joe Ryan. You have Chris Paddock. But otherwise, the list in that rotation is, gets smaller. So Pablo Lopez, he's coming off of, he had a really good 2020 season or 2022 season. Pitched just shy almost of 200 innings. He gave you 180. So about 2 starts short, just about. So, like I said, he goes out there, he's healthy, he's a guy who's consistent. He played in 32 games last year. It's not very common you see nowadays. So, yeah, I mean, he had a pretty decent performance to an extent. So, hopefully the Twins are in for a treat. I think this is a good trade for really both sides. You get a little bit of a mix. Obviously bringing in with the Marlins, you get kind of a little bit of a younger presence in Arias, who's great offensively. I mean, we saw last year that team needed help offensively, and then the Twins, they get a pitcher to address their pitching shortage.
That's for sure. I think, the Twins, who were a team that, with the new extended playoff format, they're in the window where if they're like 7-8 games over 500, they got a great shot at the wild card. And in that division, they make additions like this, they're right in that same boat where they're able to accomplish that. And this team needed more pitching. Hey, and they had Homer Bailey starting MLB games in the summer of 2022. What are we doing?
Yeah.
There's no wonder this team collapses every single year that they have something to do with playoff opportunities. Sonny Gray was their ace. Jose Barrios had one good year and they shipped him off, and the Blue Jays are now hopefully reaping benefits of him in the future. But for them, getting Pablo Lopez is huge. The Marlins still have a very young pitching staff. They gave Sandy the big bucks. But they have so many other guys there, but they're willing to give and share some hitting opportunities for their second debatable ace. The dude had like a 0.4 ERA in the mid-May. He's a dog. I mean, there's been times where he's gone through buzzsaws with the Braves lineup, the Mets lineup at times, and the Phillies lineup. So there's been times where he hasn't had his best games against the best lineups in the division, but every pitcher has his days. I've always been a big Pablo Lopez fan. And I really, really like this fit for him in Minnesota. Joining Sonny Gray. I mean, I can't really think of any other quality starters they had last year. Am I thinking of any? Was Sonny Gray really their only one?
It was really Sonny Gray. I mean, you had Chris Paddock a little bit. He wasn't fully healthy. You had Joe Ryan. Obviously, yeah. he had a pretty good, first-year performance. Otherwise, their rotation was very, very limited. Yeah, rotation-wise, I think if they had a decent 1, 2, 3, 4, or even a decent 1, 2, 3, I mean, they had a shot of competing for that division.
And you see, this is what I love about the every team plays everybody format, is you're getting teams that were in bad divisions beefing up to play everybody else. The Twins wouldn't have made this move 2 years ago. They wouldn't have. They would have said, you know what? We got the Royals and Tigers 40 times. You go 500 against a team like Cleveland, and we got ourselves set. Now they're having to face the Braves, the Mets, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Padres, everybody from the other league, and they're seeing these guys like Kansas City and Detroit, a dozen times less. So I really love this move for them. But for the Marlins, yeah, as you said, there's a little bit of ground that you gotta maybe wait to see how it turns out. Because the dude's, Arias is going to be a pest to some of these pitchers in the National League East. He's going to give Verlander fights. He's going to give Spencer Strider fights. He's going to give, Zach Wheeler issues here and there. Like, these guys are going to have to now deal with another guy in this lineup, which is slowly over the years adding more pop, and not even more pop, but more, I guess you could say, offensive performance in it. I don't know where they're going to play him yet, because as you said, they have a lot of guys that are middle infielders, including Arias, but none of them are a key shortstop. They said Jazz is going to go to center field. We'll see how that works. I have a feeling it won't go too well, at least this first year, but they're going to rock with it. They signed Gene Segura, which we'll get into that signing probably on its own here in a little bit, along with the Johnny Cueto move. The Marlins are making moves, which you love to see.
Oh, of course.
But I don't think that Arias goes to second. You definitely don't put him at shortstop. Joey Wendell is not playing shortstop. John Birdie's not playing shortstop. Who's going to play shortstop for this team? It's not going to be Segura. Like, is Joey Wendell at the age of like 32, the utility guy he is he going to be the starting shortstop for the Marlins in 2023? Because I don't think the guy they got back in that Miguel Rojas trade is ready yet, personally. Amaya, I think he's gonna. That's another move. Gosh, this might be a Marlin centric episode, low key. Um, but yeah, man, I think Arias. I think his most likely spot is first base, kind of what he was in Minnesota last year. You also give him the opportunity to DH some. I'm pretty sure Garrett Cooper's gone. I know
Yeah.
Jesus Aguilar's gone. Brian
So
Anderson's gone.
looking so looking at the Miami Marlins 2023 potential starters, they have Jorge Soler as a DH, Jacob Stallings behind the dish,
Ew.
Garrett Cooper at first, Arias at second, Wendell at short, Segura at third, and you have an outfield of De La Cruz, Chisholm, and Avisal Garcia. So yeah,
Man,
that's going to be an interesting lineup. I mean, definitely, they're definitely going to be pissing off teams, like the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies. Are they going to finish fourth in the division? Still likelihood they are. But I mean, overall, I think just bringing in Araya is a good clubhouse influence from what I've heard. A lot of the guys in Minnesota liked him. Great singles guy. He's a guy who just gets base hit, base hit, base hit, and baseball. It's the fundamentals of it. So, yeah, I think it's a really good move.
I was listening to Talking Baseball the other day, which I love their show. It's part of the reason I think why we had the idea of doing this show. And John Boy, the guy himself, Jimmy, had a very funny point saying the Marlins are going after all of these guys' names that start with J. And it's very, very scary what they're planning down there. You got Gene Segura, Jazz Chisholm, Jose De La Cruz, or what's his name? Jesus
Brian De La Cruz.
Sanchez. Brian, he doesn't count it. Jesus Sanchez, Jacob Stallings, Joey Wendell. Like he said, hell, Jerks and Profar are still out there, and that could be a spot of need for them. What the hell are
Yeah.
the Marlins doing, consuming all these J positional players and just hoarding them for their best interest? Jacob Amaya is now in that Miguel Rojas trade. You know what? To start, we're gonna have like a 25-minute segment of this episode just on the Marlins moves alone. When's the last time my baseball podcast has ever said that?
Yeah.
I can't, and I love it. They're out of division, but I love it. So yeah, I mean, I guess a recap on the trade. I think it should be a win-win if they can find the right spot to play Arias, and I think he's going to be a pest. If that power number goes up a little bit, which I don't think it will in that ballpark, but if it does, man, he's going to be an all-star for sure. In that lineup, you get Jazz Chisholm back. I think Gene Segura is better in that lineup than he fits better in that lineup than he did in the Phillies lineup the last year or two. He kind of was a fading name in there, and put him in a lineup where he'll thrive. They're probably expecting bounce back years from either Avisal or Jorge Soler, my guy, and I think you can expect that from at least one of those guys. You still got prospects out the ass. They've had them for years, and they're still there. They got the catching guy. They got Amaya now at the shortstop position. So who knows? They seem to always be in talks with Yasiel Puig, no matter how long he's been out of the league. So I have a feeling if he does ever come back to the major leagues, I could see it being a spot with the Marlins. Jerks and Profar seems to have interest there. Who would have thought? Any Latin player with the name J, they're favored for the Marlins. So keeping on that train, the next Marlins move we should talk about, and I'll set up the banners here for everybody in a segment. The Miguel Rojas trade. Funny enough, I don't know if you knew this, Hayden. You know how we talked about in a previous episode how the Dodgers are trying to get under the luxury tax this year, and that's why they were quieter this offseason to kind of reset that penalty? Guess what this trade did? It put them back over. Don't know why this was the move that they did to say, you know what, F the whole plan. But yeah, this Miguel Rojas trade has put the Dodgers back over the luxury tax. They could always get back under it, that's for sure. We'll see. But this move was very, I think, counterintuitive to me. Like, Miguel Rojas is probably going to be, the 9-hole hitter who hits 240 and plays good defense up the middle, allowing Gavin Lux another year of just no stress in LA, but at the same time, the Marlins just had another prospect to wait yet another year to develop. What was your immediate, I guess, original ideas when you saw the Miguel Amaya LA Miami trade go down?
Yeah, Miguel Rojas is an interesting guy. Like you said, I mean, he's a guy who's going to play above average defense. You know, all the defensive metrics like Rojas. He's an athletic ball player, no doubt. But
Great
when
guy
he's in
too.
the batters, yeah, but when he's in the batter's box, he's really not doing much. He doesn't strike out a lot. I mean, whiff percentage is very favorited in those categories. Whiff percentage, strikeout percentage is stated. But really, when it comes down to it, offensively, he's not a big contributor. He's a guy who's going to be hitting, like you said, 230, 240. Low OBP, 300, 290. OPS is going to be in the 700 category. So he's really not a big offensive contributor. So that's a big downgrade. Obviously, the Dodgers you had in the past, guys like Trey Turner, whoever playing shortstop. And then, now you kind of just go into, let's go with Miguel Rojas. That's pretty unfortunate. I think this Dodgers offseason, has been a disappointment. Obviously, I mean, losing Bauer, no one really cares about. But, just in terms of key free agents, like you said, they didn't spend this offseason. And do they necessarily need to spend? They have an elite farm system. But, you brought up Gavin Lux, and Gavin Lux is a player that it's just coming to the point of start him or trade him. Because, I mean, I have watched this Dodgers team, put the question in spring training, will Gavin Lux make the opening day roster? Will Gavin Lux be an everyday player? And it looks like it. And then, he's going to Oklahoma, AAA, whatever. Then what's the point? If you're not going to start him, trade him. Trade him for pitching. Trade him for something. So, I think Gavin Lux is a good ball player if he has the regular reps. I mean, we saw this past 2022 season. He had a big season for his expectations. So, yeah, I mean, I think Gavin Lux is also an interesting guy. But overall, the Miguel Rojas trade, I mean, it's not like you're, oh my God, we got an elite shortstop. You got a great defender, but crappy offender, So at this, it's like signing a Jose Iglesias at this rate. It's not gonna
Man,
have much
Gary
of an impact.
Sanchez. That's
Yeah. So
fired. I mean, you think he's probably going to do better in the Dodgers lineup than he did in Miami? Like, not saying
absolutely.
he.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that Dodgers team has much more of a lineup. So, even if he's hitting in the number 9 hole, he has ability to get a walk, get on base, get driven in, compared to, yeah.
I mean, also Dodgers Stadium, or yeah, I'm pretty sure Dodger Stadium is a lot more hitter favorable than Marlins Park is.
I would
So
say so.
you put Miguel Rojas in the 9-8 hole in the Dodgers lineup. He's probably going to hit you 245. You know, walk an amount necessary. Work the count. Like, not to say that he's Orlando Arcia because he's probably better than Orlando Arcia, but he's been in that same tier. Like, he's a guy in that lineup in the 8 or 9 hole. If he's doing that and number wise, you'll take it any day of the week. You will take, you know, that out of the 9 hole for someone who's just a stopgap. Because as you said, like the Gavin Lux conversation, well, I'm a big fan of him. It's been 2 or 3 years now where he has been clogged back by other star shortstops, and he doesn't get a fair opportunity to learn the ropes. I mean, when you're playing behind Corey Seager and Trey Turner, it's kind of hard to, other than, when one of them was injured, he stepped in. It's very hard to get all the deserved reps that you feel that you need. So now it looks like a year where, yeah, he played the most he ever had last year in his major league career, and he had the best year. A lot of people are not saying that. His OPS isn't as high as I think a lot of Dodgers fans want it, but I think he had the best season of his career, and it was his first full major league season. He finally gets a full chance to start as shortstop, and they trade for Miguel Rojas. It's a little frustrating to me as someone, the Dodgers, as you said, have this elite farm system, but I feel like they're always afraid to use it. They use these guys as bench gaps for a couple years. They trade them at the deadline when their status gets good, and they refill it with the rest. Like every time it seems like, oh, this guy's gonna be the next big thing. Nope, they just go out and sign the guy at the same position in free agency. So, I mean, you think about, you gotta head out in 20 minutes. All right, wow. Well, we'll rapid fire this thing then. you look at this Dodgers last couple off seasons. Mookie was a big contract. Trevor Bauer was a big contract. Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner. So with the top five farm system they say they have, we never really get a chance to see it. So we'll see how that trade happens. So you got 20 minutes. So let's try to get through this as much as possible. I don't know if we're gonna be able to be honest. Maybe we'll have to do a part two later this week for sure.
I
All
mean,
right,
there's only so much to talk about with the Aroldis Chapman and AJ Pollock.
we'll just have to keep our words to a minimum. Let's see. As I said, my mind's still in a million places. We'll fire through these last two Marlins topics real quick. Let's talk about the Johnny Cueto and the Gene Segura signings for Miami. We kind of already hit it on Gene, but if you want to give your full breakdown.
Yeah, so Gene Segura, he was signed. If you want to say the exact contract details, please do. But yes, Segura, he brings in this nice, it's crazy enough you call a 32-year-old a veteran, but considering that Marlins team is so young, Gene Segura, like I said last year, we saw them bring in Avisal Garcia and Jorge Soler. They didn't really execute offensively. They didn't really do much, couldn't contribute much. Wasn't what you were hoping to get. You were hoping to bring in a, veteran bat or, mid-experienced player to kind of teach and get your younger players, your Jazz Chisholms, your De La Cruzes, whoever, kind of keep them up to speed, tutor them, mentor them. So hopefully that's what the Segura signing brings. I mean, he's a good offensive player. I mean, if you look at his numbers, I mean, it's not like, he's batting, 300 or, OPS over 900, but, he's a guy who, could give you, an adequate 275, 340, 750 slash line. Not really a home run heavy guy. We saw, his playoff experience from last year. We saw he was out and about. So I think it was a good move for them. In terms of Johnny Cueto, another good thing, helps out that rotation a little bit. Obviously, this was, this signing was before you lost Pablo Lopez, but, Cueto, 36 years old, may not be what he used to be anymore. He's been bouncing around, obviously, the last couple
Yeah.
years with the Giants, the White Sox, now the Marlins. So, he's definitely bouncing around to where he's going. But, yeah, Cueto definitely still has some stuff left in the tank. I mean, obviously, he's going to be joining that Miami Marlins rotation, considering of Sandy Alcantara, a lot of other younger guys, Hernandez, many other younger pitchers in that league. But when it comes to
Big
Cueto,
years, big years
I
for
mean, he's not
Luzardo,
from,
big years.
yeah, no, Jesus Luzardo, Elisa Hernandez, Sandy Alcantara. So, he'll be joining that interesting rotation. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Cueto signing, it's nothing that's going to pop out.
Rogers.
I mean, he didn't really have a crazy season last year, but I guess for his expectations being on a White Sox team that was unhealthy and suffered issues, not horrible. Has a nice cutter. It's kind of been his prime pitch. Dating back to San Diego, nice
Mm-hmm.
little shimmy. I don't know if he still does that, but it's kind of a nice little thing. So yeah, I think it was a good move
Yeah, he does.
for them.
He does. We the Royals White Sox game we covered. He was still doing the shimmy when we did that game. That's one thing I still picked up on. So yeah, kind of quickly based on what you were saying, I think even with the Pablo Lopez being out the door, I like this move for the Marlins. He seems like he wants to be there. You saw his introductory press conference. It was kind of legendary, to be honest. And to put him in a rotation on prove-it-year deals, or, prove-it-year for Luzardo. It's a prove-it-year for Elieser Hernandez. It's a prove-it-year for Trevor Rogers and Sixto Sanchez, who was this big name right after the JT Realmuto trade. He hasn't been healthy. Like, that trade is all of a sudden looking like the Phillies are starting to reap every single benefit of that deal. Being that they made a World Series and about 1-1, while the Marlins still haven't sniffed an over 500 record and haven't even gotten more than 10 starts out of Sixto since the trade. It's a big year for some of those guys. I have a feeling if they don't perform, you're going to see some of them moved for other capital and other pieces in the next years or two. So yeah, I guess we'll see. And I guess to kind of keep things moving, sorry that this show is a little rushed, guys. We'll come back later this week with maybe a little bit more in depth on everything, and also get into World Baseball Classic news for sure. The last Marlins headline is not an addition, but a subtraction piece. Brian Anderson was, of course, non-tendered, kind of surprisingly, by the team a couple years ago. They kind of started using him out of his role from what he was good at, in the late 2018, 2019 seasons. They put him in a different role, and he just wasn't the same guy. They really ruined him. I think, in my opinion, I think he's still a great ball player. I really think he still has that 20 home run potential in him. And the Brewers take a shot on him. And Brian Anderson, play-by-play announcer for the Brewers, is going to be calling home run calls by the same name this summer. Hayden, I love this signing for the Brewers, along with the Winker move, along with the Contreras move. This Brewers lineup got a lot better, and we were not paying attention. And I think that they are going to be not as good as they were in that 2021 season, but more of what they were in 2019, where they are going to be a playoff team, in my opinion. What was your immediate take on a signing like
Yeah,
this? It was so Brewers
Brian
made.
Anderson. Brian Anderson's, he was a guy sitting in Miami who just never really, he showed a lot of potential always. He really did. I just think it's going to come down to, I guess now is he going to be able to show that potential? Obviously, is he going to be able to show that potential down up in Milwaukee? Obviously, he was playing in Florida. So, it's going to be an interesting move for him. Like I said, when we saw him in Miami with the Marlins, he never really got a full opportunity to play. Obviously, he was a third baseman. He was kind of this I don't want to say overhyped, but this highly liked prospect in the Marlins organization. Got called up, played a couple games. 2020 treating him well, so a lot of people use that argument. Joey Wendell came and kind of took away his spot, and he just got plagued with injuries and killed with that. But now, hopefully, this will be his opportunity. Play third base every day. On a team that offensively is looking for bats, which they did. I mean, on Renfroe, Brian Anderson. So, you get that from them. And, who knows? Maybe Brian Anderson can go on and be this, nice contact hitter. So we'll see how it goes. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I said, yeah, I really, really do like this signing for the Brewers. And maybe next week's episode or later this week, we can finally kind of go into full detail on it a little bit more. But yeah, I really do think the Brewers are going to reap all the benefits. And I think he might be a Brewer there for a couple of years. I really think that this offseason they've had has been a lot quieter than we think. But that's exactly what the Brewers do. And their lineup got a whole lot better these last couple months. Since we only got like 15 minutes, I'll skip past Chapman and we'll come back to it if necessary. Let's hit Andrew McCutchen. Right. He goes home to Pittsburgh. Kind of leads me to believe that this is going to be his last season, in my personal opinion. If he made this move, he could have gone back to Milwaukee or to another team for another 1-year deal. But if he signs this year with Pittsburgh, I don't think he's going to be traded at the deadline, no matter what his year is. I think this is going to be Andrew McCutchen's last season in the majors. What was your immediate take? I think this was like the right thing for him to do.
You know what? I actually projected this last stream.
Yes, you did.
I did. I remember saying McCutchen to the Pirates. One of my friends, a Pirates fan, and he was flipping out over it. Amazing what they get excited over. But yeah, I mean, 36, 37 years old. So, I mean, likely he is going to retire pretty soon. I'm a big believer in finish where you start. And I think that is what McCutchen is thinking. Like you said, he could have went back to Milwaukee. He could have went to a team that is likely going to be contending this year, but he didn't. And I think it's a good move. I'm a big favorite. We talked about it with the Marlins just before, having a veteran come in and teach the younglings, the rookies, the prospects, the younger guys. And McCutchen can do that. He could sit down and have a conversation, take some reps, whatever. I mean, he's an outfielder, but he could talk with like a guy like Brian Hayes and O'Neill Cruz, two of the most likable and have shown so much future and talent for their age. So I think McCutchen, it's really, if you're a Pirates fan and just a baseball fan, this is a deal that makes sense. I mean, it's nothing, super crazy. Still has some stuff left in the tank. So I agree with you. I think this will probably be his last year. Maybe he'll do one year next year with the Pirates again. But yeah, I think it's a good move for them.
I think you couldn't have said it better myself. All right. I know this is going to be a hard topic, but we kind of have to cover it if we're doing this episode. Your guy, Carlos Correa, finds his third team this offseason. He goes back to the one he started with. Back up in the AL Central, Carlos Correa finding a shorter-term deal with the Minnesota Twins, joining Pablo Lopez and company. I'll let you have the floor once again.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this rate, I mean, I'm much over it compared to when it happened.
That's true.
It was an interesting turn of events. It was a hard pill to swallow. I think it was more so just everything we saw on Twitter from a lot of these reporters and people, talking about this, bull crap of, the physical and the Mets and the Twins. I think a lot of it was blown out of proportion. I think there was too much information put out and, a lot of questions, a lot of inaccurate information put out. And I think that just frustrated everyone. I mean, the fact that you have two top tier organizations in the Mets and Giants pass on a player because of this injury, that says something. And the only team that he goes back to is the team that he trash talked and said he didn't want to go back to. I mean, was it the money? Was it they were willing to give him the opportunity and they didn't care about his injury? I mean, let's be real. You trash talk someone and then you come right back to them. How does that work? So, like I said, it was a hard pill to swallow for the Mets. I mean, same thing with the Giants. Um, like I said, for the Mets case, it's not the end of the world. I mean, you have an elite lineup regardless with
Brett
Correa.
Beatty season.
Brett Beatty, Eduardo Escobar, he has 1 year left on his contract. Maybe that'll motivate him. You got Brett Beatty. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Vientos takes some reps at third. I mean, this is a team that won 101 games last year. Do you need Correa? Sure. I think he definitely fills some holes, but, it's the team isn't going to smoke without him. So yeah, I mean, I think we'll see how it goes. I wish Correa the best of luck. He could play shortstop, play his position in Minnesota. But we'll see how it goes. If that injury is gonna, affect his career or filibuster any time he plays.
I guess we'll have to see. One thing I did mention, or I don't think we mentioned in a past episode that I saw since then, a lot of people don't know this. The same doctor that had the Giants back out of the deal was the one that the Mets hired, ironically, to check. So Correa talked about it. He said, in my opinion, he says if they would have found somebody else to look at his ankle, that maybe he would be a New York Met. But for some reason, I don't know who it was in the front office, made the Mets go with the same doctor that said, no, this doesn't look right, and made the Giants back out. So Correa sounded like within the first couple of days knew that the Mets deal didn't look like it was going to work out after all. They found a third guy in Minnesota, and shocker, he's back where he originally was. But yeah, it's a whirlwind of an offseason to think what inspired. And speaking of which, Jeff Passan just comes across my phone screen. I see the Twins are acquiring Michael A. Taylor in a trade with the Kansas City Royals. First trade live on the air. Let's talk about that one. Michael A. Taylor going in division. AL Central labor talk. Yeah, Jeff Passan reports 26 seconds ago the Minnesota Twins are acquiring center fielder Michael A. Taylor in a trade with the Kansas City Royals. Sources tell me, as in Jeff Passan, and Kylie MCD, a Royals beer.
Good for them. I really don't have much knowledge or an analysis to share, but good outfield depth, not a good offensive contributor, good glove. He's fast, and yeah, that's really all I have to say. I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's another depth person for when Buxton has his yearly injury that he always seems to have. He'll play in place there, but it also makes it maybe another body in there. So if they decide to go the Max Kepler trade route, they seem to be shopping. It's easier to get him moved when you have more guys on the table for it. All right, do you mind telling me real quick how many more minutes you have left per se, so I have an idea?
Yeah, no, we could finish up the topics.
Okay. All right. We'll stay with the Kansas City Royals, and good segue. Aroldis Chapman, the former Yankees fireballer, the Cuban Missile himself, finding a 1-year deal in the middle of the country. Odd.
This is an interesting move for what was going on with Chapman. I mean, a lot of Yankee fans got unbelievably frustrated with him the last 2-3 seasons, and came to a point where last year they just benched him. He didn't even make the postseason roster, and he was just horrible last year. I mean, giving up home runs and barrels left and right. I mean, just horrible numbers. I mean, he's crazy velocity, no doubt. And he's a dude who's going to be throwing 100, 101. I mean, he's up there, in fastball velocity. his velocity on the slider. He's more than a two-pitch pitcher, which is kind of unique for a bullpen guy. I think he has a fastball, slider. I want to say he has a split finger and maybe like another secondary pitch, which he throws a couple times. But yeah, I think it's an interesting move for the Royals, bringing him in. Obviously, the Cuban Missile Crisis, um, one of the few lefties that could throw over 100 miles per hour, something you don't see every day. Very unorthodox for a baseball player. But yeah, like I said, Royals are in a really kind of interesting spot. There's really not much to say when it comes to that, I suppose.
I mean, I look at it this way. I feel like while his numbers were great over his career with the Yankees, the postseason wasn't. And for those fans, that's what matters. And Chapman didn't come through when it mattered in his time in New York. As you said, they literally benched him for Clay Holmes multiple times last year. He didn't show up for the playoff roster meeting, and they said, you know what, stay in Florida, buddy. We don't need you. So I find it very detailing to think what could possibly go down for him this summer. I don't know if he's willing to be in this to be traded at the end of July, or if he's just trying to have a get right year and try to go for big money this offseason. Because I do think a lot of it is the New York fans. I think a lot of Yankee fans made him out to be worse than he was, and he finally had enough of their crap. I really do think that's a little bit of it. Not saying that he's the elite pitcher that he and, it was him and Craig Kimbrell in the early 2010s. They were like the most unhittable guys at the closer position in baseball for like 5 years. And I get that they're both older now, but I really do think that some of that comes back to him being in New York and, hearing the same repetitive stuff about you and over and over again. It gets hard to perform there. So we'll see how he does in Kansas City. All I know is he's not going to have a lot of save opportunities. So interesting that he decided to go there. Maybe he'll do some ninth inning down one, for the hell of it. But
small market team maybe a little bit better for a guy who's maybe necessarily couldn't really handle the pressure from the New York fans going to a smaller market team in Kansas City. Like I said, he's not going to get a whole lot of save opportunities. I agree with you on that. But it's 1 year deal, right? Someone's got to sign him.
Yeah, that's kind of the case. But yeah, I think he'll be somebody that you'll like. It's kind of like the Nelson Cruz signing last year, where you knew that he was going to go somewhere, and that you'll see how he does this summer to see if he's going to get flipped for something at the deadline or not. And I think that's kind of the case for Aroldis Chapman. Speaking of Nelson Cruz, he joins Matt Carpenter on a 1-year DH deal, pretty much, adding some veteranship into the Padres' youthful locker room. Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter are probably going to be the most fun platoon DH role you've seen in a long time. What were your thoughts on this signing? I think this, for me, was, with Fernando coming back from the PED suspension, Cruz is a guy that's been there before. I think a lot of this is someone who brings in a little bit of that grandpa leadership. Not saying that he's a grandpa, because he's still, very, very young for the life skill. But I think that Nelson Cruz is able to bring in a little bit of help, a little bit of, let me put my arm around your shoulder and kind of guide you in this return to baseball. The Royals get left-handed pitcher Evan Sisk and something else from the Twins, whatever. That's from Talking Baseball. But yeah, I think this Nelson Cruz signing, him and Matt Carpenter in 2023 DH for a National League team, like, this is the future, and we're using the past. I love it. But I really think that this Nelson Cruz sign is going to help guys like Fernando kind of bounce back and maybe help maybe help the Padres go further than they have in this new decade, or this new era of Padre baseball. You?
Yeah, I think it's a nice little signing. I mean, like I said, Cruz, he's gonna, he's going into his mid-40s just about. So, he's still proving he has some stuff left in the tank. Like you said, nice little DH platoon with Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz. So that'll be really, really nice for the San Diego Padres. Still has some pop in his at bat. I mean, hit 10 homers, 64 ribbies last year. And I mean, that was on a Nationals team who wasn't really doing much the whole year. So, I mean, that really goes to show you stuff. He's not what he used to be offensively, obviously. I mean, this was a dude who, at one point was hitting, 30, 40, 50 home runs in a season. Obviously, that's off the
Yeah.
table. He's not going to be playing any defense, just a sole DH candidate. If that's what you do with your veterans, I think that's pretty good. So, yeah, spreads the ball. Obviously, if you look at his hit spray chart on Baseball Savant, I'm looking at it now, spreads the ball quite a lot, I will say. Really evenly. I mean, his home runs are predominantly to left field, but you get a lot of base hits, little BABIP singles to the opposite field. So it's a nice little thing for him there. So nice signing.
Pretty much all there is to it. I guess real quick, this is a similar one. AJ Pollock replacing Mitch Haniger in that same role up in Seattle. I didn't really think about this too in depth, but a move that makes sense for both sides. Someone who really didn't play to his contract value after his years in Arizona with the Dodgers. So I think this move should be okay for the Mariners, who are trying to chase down the Astros in the AL West. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say on that, so I concur.
I think we only got 2 mini topics left. We can cover them at the same time if you want. One of them is the Adam Duvall Red Sox signing and Tommy Pham going to the Mets. I guess I'll say that since Duvall was a Brave last year, I'll give my point of view. You give your Pham point of view, and then if we want to wrap it up with the Trey Mancini Cubs, is that how you want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about Duvall, both of us, and Pham, both of us.
Okay, and then we'll wrap it up with Trey Mancini because I know you got to skedaddle to the library here soon. Yeah, with Adam Duvall, someone who just wasn't great last year. He did great for us in years past. The Braves traded for this man twice in the last couple of years, and was big in both of those years that he was traded for. Years in between where he gave us, 30 homers. The average wasn't really there with Adam Duvall, but I think I've over the years, people knew that he was never this average hitter. He was going to be 235 with 40 home runs, and if that was the case, that's what you wanted out of him. Great glove and a great arm for the corner outfield spots. So, yeah, I think this is another interesting move for the Red Sox. We talked about him before. They don't really know what direction they're going in, but someone who's not going to be there long term, it's not really a huge investment for them. It's just a body. When he got hurt for the Braves in July, it really opened back up the trade window for us to go get another outfielder, for us to get in the Brandon Drury sweepstakes, for us to get in the Ian Happ sweepstakes. And we settled on Robbie Grossman, who was just fine in his own boat. But yeah, Adam Duvall was great here in Atlanta. A lot of us loved him. He struck out a lot, but we kind of expected that over time. Hit a lot of massive home runs for us over the last couple of years. Great left field defense. He's probably one of the better left fielders defensively with the arm that you see in this generation. Type 2 diabetes guy. He's played with it his whole career. Southern guy. Perfect in the locker room. And I think that Boston might be a little harsh on him at the beginning, but he's definitely going to give him some moments here this year.
Yeah, Duvall to the Red Sox, like you said. I mean, you kind of summed it up perfectly. Defensively, interesting to see how he plays with the big green monster, obviously right behind him. But defensively,
they painted it.
My bad, green. The green monster. I'm looking at his baseball savant. He's in the 88th percentile in OAA, 74th in OJ, and then obviously 78th in arm strength. So some of the more casual defensive metrics, but yeah, I mean, pretty favorable stats. Offers a little bit of decent speed, 67th in sprint speed. So, defensively, he's a really good left fielder out there. I believe you still have Jackie Bradley Jr. on the Red Sox too, right?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So you have him next to them.
Yeah.
Two pretty, above average defenders, in my opinion, who offer some great speed. So that could be a nice little left center field duo for Boston. Like I said, offensively, I mean, he's a really under the rated guy. I mean, we saw what, he did with Atlanta 2021 and, in that October and September. So, he's a very sneaky guy. Yeah,
now he is 34, coming off a season-ending injury, so we'll see if the power numbers continue to come in. So
yeah, you have to be cognizant with that. Obviously, sample size was small last year. Probably only had like 200, 300 plate appearances, I'd say, because of that. Just
and
a ballpark guess.
So.
Yeah, platoon. So I mean, we'll see how it goes. Kind of one of the more interesting signings for Boston this year. They're kind of like you said, they're in a tough spot. What they're going to do? Didn't really sign many, huge guys this offseason. So, yeah.
Yeah. What about you with Tommy Pham?
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Pham going to the Mets, that was, nothing too crazy, kind of similar to a Duvall to the Red Sox. But, Tommy Pham, I mean, obviously the Mets were in dire need of a fourth outfielder. Right now the Mets outfield consists of Canna, Nimmo, and Marte. And, I mean, your fourth outfielder would have been Jeff McNeil. And, I've kind of been this person who likes McNeil at second. I really like him there. He's proven himself as, I think, the second best second baseman in the league, arguably the best second baseman in the league. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how Tommy Pham goes as the fourth outfielder, as well as, a DH platoon. He's a guy who offers a mix of a little bit of everything. He's not this guy who's going to hit, 30 homers, but for a bench bat to hit you 10, 15 homers, 50 RBIs. That's pretty good. It's 270, 300, 690, 700, slash line. I'll take that for a bench bat any day of the week. Yeah, I mean, like I said, defensively, he'll probably spend time. Obviously, when there's a lefty pitcher, he mashes against lefties. Something that the Mets have. It's not really an issue anymore, but it's always great to have as many guys who could hit well against left-handed pitching as possible. So you'll probably see him make a couple starts if there's a lefty on the mound. Otherwise, for the most part, he'll probably be a ninth inning, eighth inning defensive adjustment if someone needs some rest, or a DH candidate. Platoon is the DH role, whatever. Offers a little bit of speed, so we can always pitch run. One of the faster guys to the extent in the game. Give you 10, 15 stolen bases maybe a season. So I like the signing. I think it's a small 1 year, $6 million deal. Can't go wrong with it. There's no risk. I was a little curious to see how he is as a clubhouse guy. We know the whole Jock Peterson fantasy football shenanigans last year where he slapped him. But from what I've
Team
heard,
Jock over here.
yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, a lot of the Mets players have had a positive rapport with him. So I'm not really too worried or too troubled with this clubhouse thing. It's he's not going to be this leader or really have much of an impact in the clubhouse. So I think it's a good signing. I don't really have any major complaints. Small risk signing, doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say on it either. We're kind of at the point in the offseason where most of the signings are just a veteran to help a team, a fourth outfielder to help a team, other than maybe
how it goes.
Yeah, other than like the Bauer case. I don't know. I mean, they don't really have much time to get that up and running again. I guess we'll not a lot of other. Ooh, that's interesting topic for sure. So before we close out this episode, last one, Trey Mancini, the cancer survivor, Bam Bam himself, won a World Series with the Astros last fall. Goes over to the north side of Chicago with a bunch of other new names this offseason. The Cubs have really reshuffled, and they're set up for if they have a bad summer, they're going to trade them all for more capital. And if they don't, they're in the wild card. I think this move is interesting. Him and Eric Hosmer are going to be battling it out in spring training for that starting spot. Maybe they platoon him, maybe one DHs. I'm not really absolutely sure. I know Mancini has the corner outfield ability as well. So yeah, he's kind of it's kind of got the Joey Wendell Marlins trade written all over it from last year with this Trey Mancini signing. I think they'll find a spot for him, and I mean, he'll be serviceable. I'm very surprised he didn't perform very well in Houston. He had a great year in Baltimore, even though they moved the fences back on him, 30 feet to his pull side. He goes back to pull ballpark with the Crawford boxes, and he just didn't do well at all. Reason that Yuli Gurriel played above him still. And, yeah, just another signing where it's like, okay, we'll see how this goes. I guess what was your analysis?
Yeah, I actually liked the Trey Mancini signing. I was actually with one of my buddies who's a Cubs fan, so crazy to see what they flip out over these little signings. Yet I'm the one seeing Justin Verlander and all these big signings come. But that aside, yeah, honestly, I like this move for the Cubs. I think this is a really under the radar signing. Like I said, 30 years old. Last year performed really well in Baltimore. Just didn't have it last year in Houston. Even in the playoffs, just struggled. I don't know what that was. Could have been a change of scenery, just generic. I think that was just a slump. I'm not going to take it too seriously. But I think it'll be a nice move for Mancini. Most likely he'll DH, maybe play some first base for whatever reason, but probably DH for the most part. But I really do like the signing for the Chicago Cubs. I mean, once I'm done with this analysis, I'll can go over what the Cubs defensive team looks like right now. But coming off of it, Trey Mancini, I mean, could be a really good DH candidate for the Chicago Cubs. I mean, you saw his metrics last season. Overall, you have to take them with a grain of salt because he really wet the bed big time in Houston, but performed really well in Camden Yards. Obviously, he hit 18 home runs last year. I think it was projected because Camden, messed up the demographics. He could have had like 24, 25, I think it was. So, I mean, that goes to show you he still has some pop in his at bat. I'd want to say Wrigley is probably a better hitter's park in terms of what Camden is now in Houston. So, he could probably still give you 25 home runs, which for a Cubs team, that'll probably be the leader, the team leader. So I mean, like I said, he's not fast. He doesn't, he's not the best defensively. He could hit the ball hard. He could still rake. He's proven it. He's proved it. So yeah, I think it'll be a really interesting thing for the Chicago Cubs. And I mean, you look at what the 2023 Chicago Cubs could look like right now. And they're in an interesting spot. Let me grab my phone because I sent it to someone who's a Cubbies fan. So stand with me for a second. But yeah, Cubs are going to be in a much more comfortable spot. The Cubs are going to be in a really interesting spot coming this season. They really addressed a lot of the needs that needed to. As I'm doing that, also, if you want to talk about the Angels thing afterwards, we can.
With the ownership.
Yeah. So sorry.
Bro said
okay,
never mind.
So in terms of it, obviously you have Tucker Barnhart at catcher. Okay, cool. First base, we have Eric Hosmer. Okay, I mean Hosmer is a little bit on the decline defensively. Offensively, he's just a ground ball machine, but we'll see what he could do. So catcher Barnhart, first base Hosmer, second base Nico Horner, a guy that I am very high on. Shortstop Dansby Swanson, third base Christopher Morel, left field Ian Happ, center field Cody Bellinger, and right field Seiya Suzuki, and DH Trey Mancini. That's a pretty good team. I mean, maybe it's not a pretty, but for
Nick Magical too. Don't forget him. Nick Magical, Jan Gomes off the bench.
Yeah, well, they're bench pieces. But yeah, I mean, like I said, right now that's not a horrible. I mean, for I guess what the, I guess kind of, where they are in the division. Creating your family. That's kind of the benefit for them, obviously, being in that NL Central where the Reds are kind of weak. Pirates are doing. I mean, I think the Cubs will do much better than the Reds. Pirates. They could be in contention for second place. I mean, that division is the Cardinals' division, no doubt. They could be in contention for a wild card spot coming the last week in September. So pitching wise, they've addressed their needs pitching wise too. So that rebuild went a little faster than many people thought.
Well, all these contracts are set up where if it doesn't work, they'll just blow it right back up and acquire.
Yeah, and they're on short-term deals. Bellinger's a year. I want to say Mancini's 1 or 2. These are and then you have the rest of your guys are pre-arbitration and
Half's on a contract here. So
okay, so and then the rest of them are pre-arbitration. Suzuki, Morel, Madrigal, whoever. So they're short-term deals. So
the lineup would look a lot better if they still had either Chris Bryant or Contreras. If they had one of those two guys still. Because I understand the Rizzo is in his 30s and Baez was slowly declining and you could see the red flags and they kind of got rid of him at the right time, to be honest. We saw how he was with the Mets, and with Detroit. That was ugly.
And honestly, what is Bryant doing now in Colorado?
Yeah, like he took Ryan, the money and kind of ran with it.
Yeah,
but I really think
he's hurt, barely played.
He does a lot better in that lineup, though, than some of the guys are. I think
Oh, because
he provides more than maybe a second-year Christopher Morel. He provides probably more than, a Tucker Barnhart than a Cody Bellinger has. So, and with Contreras too, like I understand maybe you let him walk, but because some of the fans were upset that you're trading everybody away, but you let him walk to the Cardinals. That's like if Dansby signed with you guys. Like what? That was inexcusable. And you downgrade it for Jan Gomes and Tucker Barnhart. Because, as you said, we talked about Pete Crow Armstrong and a couple other guys in their system. You don't really hear any catchers. So it's very interesting to see why they didn't try to bring back one of those two guys. I have a feeling Ian Happ's going to be gone if they don't have if they're less than 5 games above 500 by the trade deadline, Ian Happ's gone. If they're like 10 games over within the Milwaukee's grasp, maybe they let him stay and they try to re-sign him. But I don't know, like this Cubs team feels a lot like 2021 Nationals, where they have pieces, but they're all short term, and if it doesn't go to plan, they're all going to be gone, and it's going to be a bunch of spitfire. So, I know you got to go. So, later this week, here on Longball, we'll try to come back, maybe talk some World Baseball Classic. By that point, it'll be like 3 weeks, till pitchers and catchers report. After the Super Bowl, we're 2 weeks away from expedition games, which, for your favorite team, sometimes they're pretty entertaining to watch if you want to see the roster shape up. And I know I'll definitely be tuning in to some other position races like the Hosmer versus Mancini race in the month of March. But yeah, guys, sorry the show was a little bit shorter, a little bit more blah, blah, blah than the last have been. We'll try to come back, Thursday, maybe Friday this week, talk some World Baseball Classic, maybe kind of retune on some of the signings today, and maybe there'll be another one between now and then. But Hayden, I know you got to go, and I got some things to take care of too. So, we'll talk to you guys next time. Have a great evening. And is there anything else you want to add before we say goodbye?
I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Obviously, I believe we touched on everything in the chat, so that was always fine and dandy, of course. Obviously, pitchers and catchers report in 23 days, and spring training 25th. Today's the January 23rd, so we got a month and 2 days just about. So that's going to be really exciting. I'll definitely be in Port St. Lucie watching the Mets play with the 7 line, so that'll be really fun. So. Keep an eye out for that. I'll definitely be going to a ton of spring training games with my friends this February. So definitely I'll post some stuff and share pictures and funny, interesting videos of how that goes. But yeah, otherwise I appreciate everyone for tuning in. We're just hitting the hour mark almost on the stream.
Longer than I thought it'd be.
So obviously I don't really have anything else. Like I said, World Baseball Classic, we'll probably touch on that a little bit later, just because that's kind of just a different topic. That's really all I got. Appreciate everyone for tuning. Obviously, Blake for coming on here. I mess with the shades. I like them, bro.
Hey,
I feel weird not having mine on.
I like yours too.
my little baseball glasses. Yeah. I gotta get like a pair of like Ray-Bans or something. That's what I should have asked for my birthday. I should have asked for like a pair of Ray-Bans or something. But
Raycon used talking 25% off with the Talking Baseball.
Yeah. Gio and Gio in the chat. I appreciate you for the birthday wishes. I did a lot of interesting stuff, but it's probably best I don't say it on air. So yeah.
Fun juice. It's legal for you, so it's legal.
That was the least of what happened.
Yeah, all that. Cookies, popcorn, baseball. All right, we'll see you guys for more baseball talk. I'm excited.
LFGM. Let's go, baby.
Chapman.